California. My name is Richard Palais, and I am presenting this presentation to those who are operating in the cultural and arts program space, those organizations that are nonprofit in that particular space. This presentation is specifically geared to that audience. This round, which opened today, round 4 of the California Relief Grant, is as a result of the funding of Governor Newsom. Governor Newsom, in his California Relief Grant, had given the authority to California Office of Small Business Advocates to distribute $2 billion. Most recently, he increased the grant from $500 million to $2 billion to be distributed to California small businesses. A system was set up and able to provide the equal opportunity for all small businesses to apply for grants here in the state of California. Of course, it is a relief grant. The grants, and we'll talk about the ranges of the grants, but this opportunity was provided for small businesses to get a lift in their business because of the impacts of COVID. There are going to be, in total, there are going to be 6 rounds in total. So far, 3 rounds have passed, and where we are now, we're in round 4. This was an opportunity that was open for $50 million in grants to be distributed to those nonprofits that are in the arts and culturals program space. We will learn more about which NAICS codes actually apply to those particular organizations, and we welcome you to this presentation. We are AmPac Business Capital. Once again, we are a partner with Lendistry. We're what we call a servicing partner. They're the administrator, Cal OSBA is the administrator of the grant. Lendistry is the distributor of the grant and the organization that's doing the scoring for those who are applying for the grant, and we are servicing partners. So we're here to help you get information as we're doing today, training on how to apply for the grant, how to navigate the application, and then ultimately, if you have any challenges with the website, we are here to help assist with those who may need assistance. 344,000 applicants in the first round alone applied for grants in round 1. So servicing partners are here because they understood, meaning Lendistry, understood the volume of people who would be applying. So who is AmPac Business Capital? Well, we are a nonprofit organization. We're a 501c3, so we ourselves are a nonprofit, and we exist to make communities better and families stronger as champions of job makers, small businesses. What we do, we make business loans. We make business loans to small businesses in 3 different types of loans that we do. We have direct lending, we have SBA loans, and we have government-backed loans. Our organization can do loans as much as $30 million or greater when we're involved in transactions of that particular size, working in conjunction with a bank. The designations of the loans that we do are SBA 504. That's the ones we do in conjunction with the bank. We have the SBA microloan, which is a part of the community lending department, which I am the manager of. And our SBA microloans run anywhere from $2,500 to $50,000. We are also a CDFI, a Community Development Financial Institution, which means we were licensed by the state of California to provide lending as well under the guise of a CDFI. And what that means to you is you can get lending up to $100,000 through our organization under that designation as well. We also partner with many organizations. So there's business advising that's provided to small business owners. There are training programs, some offered directly by the staff in our organization, others by our partners. And of course, as we mentioned, we do have loan possibilities available. Why do you choose AmPac Business Capital? Because we work to say yes when others have said no. What does that mean? That means we are here to do what we can and looking at a client's profile and deciding how can we help provide lending for you. We're also a matchmaker where perhaps we notice that you may not know, but you qualify for bank financing. We'll make sure that you receive bank financing, and if not, we will provide the financing for you. And if it's not today, perhaps it's later that we help you with lending, but we want to make sure that you get the opportunity to understand if you can receive lending, we award it to you. If you cannot, how can we help you get there? We don't simply say no. We're always working to get to a yes. We understand the importance of small businesses in the United States. Over 60% of our economy depends upon small businesses throughout the United States, and we have a passion to serve small businesses. And in fact, traditional banks call on us. When they can't make a loan for a client, they refer the clients to us because together we're trying to make families stronger and communities better. Our mission our mission is financing small businesses, keeping small businesses first, and recognizing it's a small business success that's important to us in providing that financing, and that's paramount to us versus shareholder profit. We are a direct lender, as I mentioned earlier. So the flexible underwriting that you'll see on the slide, underwriting with a heart, what we do is we exercise prudence. We're not willy-nilly in dispersing these funds. We're very responsible with the capital that's given to us to re-lend out to clients, but we are always looking again to try to find the yes. This is our contact information. If you want to take a picture of this particular slide, please feel free to do so. You will note our phone number, 909-915-1706, our website at ampac.com. And then to your left, you'll notice our beautiful new building. Our president was just able to acquire this building at the end of last year. Renovations are going on in the building now. So you can drive by and visit the business park that's just east of Archibald Avenue and Inland Empire Boulevard. But you can't visit. We will announce when we'll have our grand opening. We're expecting to resume, operations in this particular building in mid-June, early July, and then we're expecting to have a grand opening in September. We hope that you will be interested in joining us. So let's talk about the California Small Business COVID-19 Relief Grant Program. What we're going to present today is an overview of the program, how to actually apply for the grant that is available, and we'll talk about the levels of the grant levels that are available to nonprofit organizations. This program guide is available online at careliefgrant.com. You can find this particular program guide there. If you need a copy, I'll ask Brian if you would put my contact information in the chat. You can also write to me and I can send a copy to you. But we're going to be going over specific areas in this program guide so that you understand how to apply for this particular grant. Where we are now, you'll notice the bullet point that I've highlighted where it says round 3. That round just ended. That was ending the total of $486 million that was being available in grants to small businesses being distributed right now as we speak. During this particular grant round, which is round 4, nonprofit arts and cultural, there's $47,875,000 being made available to nonprofits who qualify. So we encourage you, if you're a part of a nonprofit in the cultural and arts program, please make sure you apply for this grant because the opportunity definitely abounds to receive money for your organization. And perhaps if there's someone you know, also encourage them to apply. After this particular round closes, which will be next week, round 5 will begin. And in round 5, $729 million will then be released or made available, I should say, for grant applications to those who qualify. And so we're very excited about this round here now. And then round 5 and 6 will be a distribution or an awarding of $725 million. We're so thankful to our Governor Newsom for providing these funds so that we can provide out to those businesses that need it the most. And there's a scoring system. You'll notice the dates there. March 5 through 11 is round 3. That one just closed. So starting today through March 23rd, which is next week, will be round 4. This is exclusively for nonprofits only. Then on March 25th, 2 days later, through March 31st will be round 5. Round 6 is to be determined, but remember, $729 million will be made available to small businesses, nonprofits that do not receive a grant during the cultural and arts program or arts and cultural distribution will also be able to apply in the next round. We'll talk more about that during the course of the presentation. And I really want to emphasize to you, unlike the PPP program, unlike last year's CARES Act relief program by the federal government, this is not on a first come, first served basis. As much as monies could ultimately run out, but they will not run out without every applicant having the opportunity to be considered for a grant. That's very, very important. We always want to emphasize that. This is why we're encouraging as many people as possible apply for this opportunity to receive a grant. When the application is received in our particular portal, Lendistry then processes that application. It's an automated process in the beginning, in that after you put your information in, the system scores when the round closes. It performs what we call a scoring process, which is just a mathematical analysis, excuse me. All of the components of this scoring we do not know, but a couple of things we know as governed by the state of California was it must be a highly impacted industry. It must be the grant application must indicate information that the owner was one of a minority group or a veteran or a woman, underserved communities, highly impacted communities, highly impacted industry. Those are a couple of the components. The other components we do not know. There's only two people on the planet that know all of the variables, but the reality is it's as fair as it can get in distributing monies to small businesses. The first stage of the application process is providing documentation, applying for the grant. The second stage will be the review. The system scores. You're notified that you've been selected. You or an organization is notified that you've been selected. And then the documentation that was provided, bank information, is then validated and verified that everything is in order. If so, a certification is signed. Grant funds are distributed within 7 days. During this particular week's period, the only applicants that are being considered are those in the nonprofit arts and cultural program distribution. If you're managing or distributing information in the nonprofit arts and cultural space, you are eligible to apply. This round of $50 million is only available to those who are in that particular space and who have not received the California Relief Grant in earlier rounds, because the earlier rounds were open to nonprofit and for-profit, regardless of what your NAICS codes were. The grantee eligibility, I've highlighted a few points in this particular slide here. It's the physical address must be in California. You have to have been in operation or been established since June 1st of 2019, and you're either currently operating or you're planning on operating, because we do know that certain COVID-19 rules have caused businesses to shut down. But in other words, you have to be planning. You have to be making preparations to open again. You cannot be simply out of business and expect to receive or should even apply for the grant, because you will not be deemed eligible. The business must be able to provide organization documentation in a 2019 tax return or the Form 990 for the business. This must be provided. The municipality or the state government agency where you use to get your business signed up, whether it be through the California Secretary of State, whether it just be through a local authority because you've got a business license to operate in the city of Los Angeles, that's fine, or whatever city you might be joining us from. You are certainly welcome to apply. You're eligible as long as that information is provided. You will note the definitions that we're speaking here regarding the grant. You have to have gross revenues of at least $1,000. And in this particular round, though the slide says up to $2.5 million, that was in the previous rounds. For the cultural and arts program round, your gross revenues are unlimited. So you're not limited to $2.5 million for this particular round. You just have to be eligible to apply. The grant amounts will change according to your gross revenue range. But again, we want to emphasize, unlike in former rounds, regardless of what your revenue level is, you're welcome to apply for this grant. People have called and asked, what documentation do I need to provide to evidence my entity type? You'll notice on the right side of the screen that you can determine your gross sales from your 1120s, your 1120S, your Schedule C, or your 1065 for LLCs. That's where you want to look for that information. And you can also look at your 990. But Schedule E, however, which is passive income, and most nonprofits are not filing Schedule E's, but for those businesses that were. So this information is general to all, but I wanted to particularly highlight nonprofits. Here are the 15 NAICS codes that are the only NAICS codes of nonprofits who are in the cultural and arts program space that can actually apply in this particular round. Please take a picture of this page or make sure you get a copy of the application guide that I'm speaking from so that you recognize, Barbara, that, oh, this is my space. I am eligible for application. Thank you. Ineligible businesses, those businesses that do not have a business here, physically located here in the state of California. And of course, you must be, you have to be a 501c3 or 501c6 or a 501, a 501c19, I'm sorry. And so here again, if you have those particular standings, it's important that you recognize if you're a religious organization have used any of those designations or those entity types, that it has to be that there's a school or a daycare program or some other activities that can be managed by the religious organization, but it cannot be for religious studies, it cannot be for political purposes, etc. Those nonprofits would be deemed ineligible. And so if there are other programs, you're not eligible for this. Thank you. Usage of the funds, you can use the funds for paying payroll. You can use the funds for setting up perhaps the area where your business is being conducted for to allow the public in. So you're following COVID-19 PPE rules and setting your place of business up to receive the public. That's fine. All of those uses are fine. The ineligible uses you want to know, it cannot be human resources expenses for state share of Medicare, employee bonuses, severance pay, taxes, legal settlements, etc., personal expense. It must be used for the business in and of itself. Reminding again about how applicants are being determined in this particular round, besides the NAICS codes, the 15 NAICS codes, but also this slide is just reiterating what I shared earlier about some of the components that are being used in the scorecard and who this is specifically for in the way of the NAICS codes. So now the fun part, you're waiting saying, okay, this is great, but how do I know which grant to apply for? Well, you'll note here that if your annual gross revenues, I want to emphasize that, are $1,000 to $100,000, you can apply for a $5,000 grant and possibly be awarded. Your business, of course. If your annual gross revenues are over $100,000, so $100,001 to $1 million, you can apply for a $15,000 grant. And if your annual gross revenues are greater than $1 million, so $1,001, and there is no cap, just as long as it's greater than $1 million, you can apply for a $25,000 grant. Application stages, as we mentioned earlier, is just two stages. The first part of it is completing the grant application. It's uploading documents specific to your particular application. Those documents, as we shared earlier, are evidence of revenue document, and it is your documents, plural, and it's evidence of your entity being legally able to do business in the state of California, so you're registered somewhere, and there will be a self-certification. There's an application certification form that is a part of this application process. That's something you're not bringing to this particular process, but it will be introduced as a part of applying for the grant. We'll look at that in a moment. The second stage, if you're selected for a grant, then it's giving banking information for the monies to be deposited to, and it's signing a grant certification saying you recognize that you are receiving the grant. You'll be responsible for the usage of the funds from the grant. You're certifying that you're going to do that. You sign that, and within 7 days, monies will actually be deposited into the bank account. So you will be completing these forms electronically. We spoke about an application certification, one of the first documents that you're going to want to download right away. If you'll note here, it says non-profit cultural institutions. That is the application that you want to download. Excuse me, that is the document you want to download first and save to your computer. You will go through that document. We'll talk about that. You're going to initial throughout the document, and ultimately there will be a live signature needed at the bottom. You will then upload that document back into the system. What this slide is demonstrating is that you will download this document, save it onto your computer. If you download the document, it is an Adobe Acrobat document, and attempt to complete it, you can complete the document, but if you do not save it and you do not download it, excuse me, if you don't download it and save it to your computer and then complete it, all information will be lost. So you want to remember to save that to your computer. Pointing out here on this particular slide again is recognizing where the application certification is. You will see the click here to download. And by the way, that's a hot link in the application guide, so you can upload it from there. You can download, excuse me, from there versus waiting till you get into the application to actually apply to get a hold of it. And again, I wish to remind you that after completing everything else electronically, a signature is necessary on the form. The Arts and Cultural Program certification is listed here. It is a 4-page document. You can read the information that's on the page, but again, it's asking you about your responsibility as an organization and your responsibility to the usage of the grant funds. We mentioned earlier about the rounds. This slide is just reiterating what we talked about in the rounds. This is a general presentation not only for nonprofits in the cultural and arts space, or the arts and cultural space, but for everyone. So we'll particularly focus on the middle of the document. Those that were waitlisted, they're moving to rounds 1 and 2. Round 3, those that are waitlisted will move down to round 5. In this particular round, it is only for arts and cultural. Arts and cultural who were in round 1 and 2 that were waitlisted will move into round 4 as long as their NAICS code applies. And new applicants also in the arts and cultural space are also allowed to apply, are welcome to apply during the course of this grant cycle. Looking at, let's see, round 3, waitlisted from rounds 1 and 2, what this graphic is displaying is what happened. They were individuals were waitlisted from the particular round. I'm sure you can see my cursor. Documentation was collected. The scoring was performed in rounds 1 and 2. They were not selected, so therefore they went into round 3. And what will happen here in round 3, information will be validated. If they're raised up as being approved for a grant, the information is validated where a live human being is actually going to audit those documents. At first, it was just a computer. Now live people are actually looking at these applications and deciding. Over 40,000 people were selected in round 1 and 2 to receive a grant. So there's a team that is working essentially 12 hours a day, 5 days a week right now, going through this information, validating it and getting it ready for grant awards. A grant award agreement will be then sent out to those who were approved. You must sign it. You must sign the W-9, send it back. Funds are dispersed. The other side of it, those that are not selected, that means the process has ended. This is the end of the road. You cannot apply in any additional rounds. You're not eligible for the grant. Those that are waitlisted will automatically move into round 5. This particular round, which is open just for arts and cultural programs, this is where we're taking those from, again, the former rounds. We're moving them into round 4. If you're a nonprofit, you applied there, you weren't selected, your NAICS codes fit, you're now a part of this new population of those that can be awarded a grant, along with those who are applying for the first time. Documentation collection, the scorecard process happens at the close of the grant, which will be next week and then round 4 then round 4 will end. The end of that process will be, again, 2 statuses. Either you're approved for the grant, documents were validated, grant agreements are sent, funds are dispersed, or you were deemed ineligible. And if you'll notice, there is no wait list in this round. If you're deemed not selected, if you're deemed approved, either getting money or you're not selected, that is the end of your journey and the round itself. For those from round 4 that were not selected, you then, in round 5, you'll be moved to round 5, even though you were not selected, you'll be moved to round 5, and new applicants will have an opportunity to apply, as well as those that were moved from the round 4. Documentation is collected, scorecard. So as you can see, the process continues. Those that were waitlisted again join round 5. Now, earlier process that we spoke about continues, and again, waitlisted. Waitlisted, you go to round 6. We don't have a date for round 6 yet, but what will happen is those 1, 2, 3, and 5 who are waitlisted move to round 6. They and new applicants will have the opportunity to apply as well. Here are just some tips. There's some tips here. It says, what do you do before applying? This is Lendistry's reference to say you may want to look, this is the application guide we're going through today. You may want to look at the, excuse me, you may want to look at the application guide that we're going over. You may want to look at webinars. These are live webinars. There's also videos on the system that will show you exactly screen by screen what we're going to go over here today, preparing the required documents, and of course, it's finding a partner to go through. In this particular time, round 4, there are only 3 places where you can actually apply, and those are nonprofit organizations that do service those in the arts and cultural space. Barbara, I did notice that you asked me acceptable form of government ID for a nonprofit. You did file your nonprofit status with the state of California, and so that would be your state ID, excuse me, with the state, you're indicating that you are registered as a nonprofit to do business in the state. And then the individual that's applying on behalf of the nonprofit, who the person who's filling out the application, we know that no one owns the nonprofit, not in that formal sense. You're managing a nonprofit, you're responsible for the actions of the nonprofit. So that individual, so it could be the CEO, it could be whoever the board has decided can sign on behalf of the nonprofit, that person will need to provide their driver's license or a social security card, just some information to show that this person is a real person tied to this particular organization and is a legal citizen in the United States. So I hope that makes sense. As far as your verification of bank account via electronic registration, we'll actually cover that. I'll answer the question because I opened the chat, but you'll see that Lendistry is using a system that is owned by Visa. It's called Plaid. So I'll give you that as a sneak peek, but I won't do a spoiler alert and tell you all about it. We want to advise that when you apply for the grant that you use Google Chrome when applying for this grant. It's not to say that Firefox and Explorer and Safari and Bing will not work. However, it seems to be disruptive in the application process. So what we're saying to folks, if you don't normally use Google Chrome, just download it for this application. You will have the most fluid experience when you use Google Chrome. We want to also advise that the email address, though your organization may have an info at, or it has the name of the organization at contact.com or noreply.com. Do not use those type of emails for receiving correspondence in this particular program because the system is going to identify it and you will not be eligible. Unfortunately, you won't be eligible because those are the wrong types of emails. They can't communicate with you. It's not going to be effective. When it comes to uploading documents, what you want to bear in mind is there are many ways, many apps that you can use to actually upload documents. We have found that Genius Scan and Adobe Scan work very well for this particular process. So for those that are using mobile devices, because you can use a mobile device versus a computer for this process, we recommend, I shouldn't say we recommend, but we say that we found a great experience with Genius Scan or Adobe Scan. I don't want to be prejudicial towards other applications that people may say, but I love this particular application. That's great. If it has been working for you, it should work in this process. But we're saying, again, we've had the best experience working with these particular applications. A couple of things you want to remember when you put your information into your application versus the data as well as the documents, there'll be messaging that will be provided as you exit from the application. This screen is indicating some of that messaging. You will note at the top, and I'll go ahead and use my cursor here, you will note the word incomplete here. And the incomplete status simply means that you have not put in banking information yet, but your documents may indeed have been completely uploaded. You will, further in this presentation, I will show you where you can see what documents have actually been accepted. Thank you, Barbara. You're welcome. Also, you'll notice another messaging that you may see during the course of the process. You will see it says pending document upload. Here, you have actually uploaded all of the required documents, but you haven't put in banking information yet. And we actually don't encourage you or don't ask you to include banking information until you're accepted for the grant. It's not that it'll be a problem if you put it in, but why go through the extra effort of doing that if you have not been awarded a grant? So Lendistry has learned it's just easier just to simply let people wait until they're getting a grant before they apply. Before they add their banking information. The partnership, if both partners are legal signers of contracting for the business, either partner could actually apply. It does not matter. If you have a majority partner, then fine, use the majority partner. But again, if both are equal, And matter of fact, you don't even have to be the majority partner as long as you're a partner in the partnership. So you're going to provide a copy of your tax return for the partnership, the 1065, and your ID is just going to be that person that's signing on behalf of the partnership. Hope that helps. Clearing your cache. You may have heard the expression about cache. Well, what we know about Google and Firefox and all these different search engines that they like to track your activity, they like to track where you've been, places where you've been, and it stores in an area called cache. Well, sometimes people have had challenges in that they've changed websites when they're applying for grants, and the cache is maintained. The memory is maintained in cache, and when they're trying to go back into their application, complete some more information, they can't get back in. Well, it's because people have applied at multiple places, and the cache keeps taking them to the formal place where they applied, and they can't get back in. So the instructions here are a suggestion to clear your cache. You could do that through your settings, and you want to clear your browsing data to make sure that you're ending up at the place when you're applying, each time you apply, at the right location every time. You may not have to clear your cache, but you want to do this if you're having a problem accessing the application a second time. Also, what you'll want to note is there's an opportunity to use incognito mode. Incognito mode can be used where no tracking information is being kept, and you can go into incognito. There are three dots on the top of your screen. You'll find this in every browser. There'll be those three dots, excuse me. In Google, it's incognito mode. In the other browsers, you may find that it says in private. It's all the same. It's meaning that your search activity will not be tracked. Section for signing with a partner. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Barbara. I just see you referred to two for nonprofits. Signing up with a partner. Got it. What becomes interesting with this particular question is you're saying that you want to apply as partners. So these are two I got it now. Two nonprofits are working together in the same arts and cultural program. One partner needs to be the partner that's actually going to apply if you're applying on behalf of this partnership. That's what's important. If it's two entities that are working together in this particular program, but this is really going to be based on tax filings, I'll just have to put the question back to you. How do these two entities, these two partners, file taxes? If you file a joint tax return, then either entity can apply for the grant because you're using a single tax return on behalf of both partners for one cultural and arts and cultural program. But if you're two individual entities, and who have their separate tax returns, you both can actually apply for the grant. Even if you're managing the same program, because you both are filing taxes, it means you both are receiving a certain amount of revenues from the program. Even if you're splitting it, you are still operating independently of one another because you're filing taxes independently. So I hope that helps. Moving on to finding a partner, when you go to careliefgrant.com, you will look for a partner here. You'll find there's only going to be 3 partners listed, so you just choose one and apply. No partner is better than the other. It doesn't work that way. All of us are just servicing information. Let's see, Barbara, you said you have a single entity, but tip number 1 per 4 says choose a partner. Let's see. Oh, okay. The partner that they're speaking of there, that's just a servicer. We, for example, AmPac, we are a servicing partner as far as the grant process goes. So if this was not the arts and cultural program, you would see a whole list of organizations by county and by city. When you go to the site, you'll see what I mean. There's lots of organizations listed. But for this particular program, there's only going to be, this particular round rather, it's only going to be 3 partners. There again, you'll see the 3 listed. You can pick any one of those 3. And as I was sharing earlier, because I misunderstood your question, I'll provide more emphasis. Each of them are servicing organizations, so they're people that you can call and say, I'm having trouble before calling Lendistry. I'm having difficulties. Can you help me with my application? That's all we're doing is servicing partners, but there's no, oh, this one is more successful than the other. We're all ultimately providing our information to the same system, which is owned by Lendistry. They're doing the processing. So choose whichever one you'd like. I hope that helps. And thank you so much for further asking your question so that I can provide that particular clarity. Now that you've chosen someone, one of the three organizations, California Museum, and forgive me, I don't know all of the organizations, but I do know I've attended webinars with California Arts Museums and Arts Program. They're one of the partners, so you can certainly use them. Oh, thank you, Barbara. You're so kind. It's one of those where if I jumped into the system, it would make it a little easier, but I'm just using the deck for now just to move us through. But my contact information I will place in the chat if it wasn't done so by one of my colleagues. I can place my contact information in. So even if before entering any partner site, before entering the grant, you want to chat, please feel free to give me a call. It'll take us a few moments and I can show you where it is and it'll be great. And I cannot emphasize enough. Thank you so much for asking that question. Oh, there's my information in the chat. You're certainly welcome to give me a call, and I will, again, walk you through and get you into the system. And now here's what the first page is going to look like once you've selected a partner, and you notice that it says learn more about this partner. You could actually go to their website from the Lendistry website where it says learn more about this partner. So if you want to research the three institutions, say, well, I want to really decide based on what I know about the institution, you can use learn more about the partner. Apply now. When you select apply now, supply now will open this particular screen that you're seeing here. You notice it says existing customers signed into account and sign into your account. And this one is find the right grant for you. So you will start with click here to apply for the grant. That will open a window similar to this. And what you're looking for is the nonprofit side. Select nonprofit. No, by the way, this is the general screen for all of the rounds that we had, but I believe what they've done is they've actually changed it where when you go into here, you will not see the for-profit, but this is only going to be for the arts and cultural program. But either way, you see what I'm saying. You're going to go here, you're going to go apply now. When you hit apply now, that's going to take you to the first page of the application. The information requested on this particular first section, I'm saying page or section of the application, is the person who's applying on behalf of the nonprofit, who's filling out this application on behalf of the nonprofit, first name, last name, email, phone number, business name, zip code. You want to use the valid email addresses that we talked about earlier. And please do not forget to click the little button. Matter of fact, what you will see as a pop-up, this is very important. When you're clicking the button to agree, but you may want to look at the SMS / text policy. The pop-up, and this is another thing I forgot to mention earlier, Barbara, you want to make sure your pop-up blocker is off when you're applying for this particular grant. This little window that you see on the bottom of the screen is just telling you that you may be contacted by text message as far as requests for more information, the fact that you've been selected for a grant, the fact that your monies have been deposited in your account. And if your pop-up blocker is on, guess what? You'll never get this message. So even though you've clicked that you accept the terms, you will not know that you have to say okay to the terms so that you can receive those text messages. So by clicking that only, you're going to miss the whole message that's telling you you can't click this button unless you are able to see this message, and that's because your pop-up blocker must be off. You're going to click continue. The next screen is owner's details. Well, we know that there's no owner of nonprofits, but this is the individual who's applying on behalf of the nonprofit. So you're putting first name, last name, email. Forget the part that it says owner. It's just I'm the person putting the information in on behalf of the nonprofit. You can use the address of the nonprofit. Let's see, birthday. Oh, yeah, so I guess they're still asking for the birthday of that individual. Maybe they're going to send cards every year on your birthday. Owner's social security number. I'm kidding. The reason why they want the birth date is, it's saying birthday, but because it's your birthday every day. Oh, yes, we're celebrating your birthday. But in this particular case, it's the identity of this person is going to be validated. You are truly a U.S. citizen. You are the person who you say you are because your date of your birth, your social security number, percentage of ownership. We recognize that you're not an owner of the organization. I believe you can put 0 here. If you put 0 and it doesn't work, then just go ahead and put 100 just to move the page along. But it's already understood this is a nonprofit and there are no owners, but they're using the same application for for-profit and nonprofit through the other rounds, and they just did not go through and change the form in and of itself. So do know it's okay. We know you're not the owner. Don't forget to click the box on the bottom. This is your agree to terms and conditions. And the terms and conditions again will display. Another reason why you want to make sure pop-up blockers are not there. Terms and conditions will be there. You can read it. You're clicking OK. That will advance you to the next screen. Information needed. Here's the business information. So this is all the entity information. And you can see the information that's being asked there. Nonprofit status, of course, you're putting in nonprofit. So that was the obvious. I wanted to highlight down here. If the nonprofit does not have a website, information must be completed. The computer cannot differentiate. Oh, you don't have a website. It's okay. Leave the area blank. No fields can be left blank. Your application will not complete, will not allow you to, the system will not allow you to complete the application if you don't put something in every field. So if you don't have a website, just simply put none.com. Finally, how can we help you? This is the fun part because now it's an organization. Tell us a little bit more about the organization and then the grant in and of itself. So it's purpose of the grant, the amount that you're requesting, status of your revenues, number of full-time employees, part-time employees. It's saying employees, but these are individuals that are working. Well, these are actually employees, by the way. I'm sorry. I was going to say these are contractors as well. You could put your contractors down and call them part-time. That's fine. We're just, the system is just trying to, for statistical data for the government, is collecting information to say in this institution, they had this many individuals operating either on a full-time or a part-time basis, so you can use your contractors listed here. You can put their numbers in because it is just head counts, not any more specific information than that. Number of jobs created. If you plan on adding people as a result of staying in business, which this grant helped you to be able to do, how many jobs will you create? The number of jobs retained, that includes whoever is currently operating in the business, in the nonprofit. So please make sure to include yourself or the person applying. Sometimes people forget, well, I'm the head of the nonprofit, so I don't count me. It's all those other people. You count as well. You are an employee of the organization. And then finally, it's the amount requested. We talked about earlier what the different ranges are. This is just here to help you if you didn't know. What was it again? What were the revenues before I know what amount to apply for? This is just a table to help you remember. In the business demographics, just trying to learn more. Where is this operation located? Who are the people that are operating in the business? And of course, your NAICS code. Please bear in mind it's those 15 NAICS codes that we talked about. And you status here. So women-owned business, veterans, disabled, race, ethnicity, a franchise, or rule. All that information is required. There is a choose not to disclose. There will be, these are all drop downs, by the way, and I believe you can see the down arrows. They're all drop downs. You can choose not to disclose, but the information, the question has to be answered. That's what I want to emphasize here. You have to answer the question in order to move forward and completing the application. The system, as you can see, just as I'm navigating, it will let you go up and down in the application, but the key is going to be you will not be able to submit if all fields were not completed. These are the disclosures. Just going to ask you about you as the applicant putting in the information. These series of questions will be asked. You use the drop downs to answer, and you click submit. If you decide, and so you're submitting that portion of information, if there's a need to come back and maybe there's information that you didn't have handy. Oh, I forgot to have the tax returns with me to put in the EIN number. I forgot to look at what the NAICS code is. And by the way, you can find your NAICS code on your tax returns. The accounting professional should have put that information on your tax returns because the government is collecting that information. But let's just say you decided not to complete a field because you weren't ready at that particular time. That's fine. You can skip the field in that, or you can correct it later during this part as long as you don't submit the application. So how can you save and continue for later? Oh, you can push the button that says can save and continue later and do not put the word yes here in this line. Because if you put yes, it's automatically going to put you to continue. You will not have the save and continue later option because you typed in you or someone, excuse me, typed in yes, it's only going to give you continue. When you continue, all information is now saved, can no longer be edited. Documents can be replaced and put into the system. We'll talk about that momentarily, but they cannot be edited. Finally, when you do that, the system is going to it's going to activate the portal. You're now going to be considered an existing customer of this or an existing applicant of this process. And you will be sent an email to whatever email you designated with this letter. This letter is going to give you a temporary password. You're going to use the email address that you had before as your username. So that will remain the same, but it's going to give you a temporary password. You'll want to put that information in where it says existing customer. You put in your email that you use for the system. You put in the temporary password that they gave you. You hit submit. The system will now allow you to reset your password, and you can provide the password of your choice. Uploading documents. This is a reminder of earlier. We showed that the messaging that the system will give after you exit an application, you will see incomplete. So that means, okay, you've either you didn't upload documents or you've uploaded documents, but you hadn't completed your banking information. Either way, it's going to give you a complete message. Once you do upload documents, what it will say is, this is after I'm going to just show you now. It says pending documents to be uploaded. Here's where you can upload. When you do, it will still leave it, it'll still return the status as incomplete even as you upload your documents. It will still leave the status as incomplete because the banking information wasn't included. This is what this portal will look like when it's time to upload documents. Very explanatory. It's carried your organization name forward. It's reminding you to just put in the information in the categories that applies to that particular category. What we've experienced is people were using one category and sending in 15 different document types into the same category, and then it leaves the ultimate in their mind. I've uploaded all documents, I'm done, but it leaves the status of less than 100%, and that is indeed a problem. You have to go back in. So Lendistry has modified the system where now the categories, government ID, it says pending. You'll want to click on the pending so it can open up the ability for you to upload the document. So you're going to select the category, then you're going to upload, you're going to browse your system, pull the document up, and upload it into the system, and then it will say completed. You do that by section until all documents have been completely loaded. And in the interest of time, we're just going to move quickly through this because all of the steps at this point become repetitive because you're just simply uploading different documents. Linking the bank information, just like to remind again, we talked about this. The banking information for the nonprofit does not need to be included in the very first stage. Wait till you're wait till you're selected, excuse me. You get awarded once the banking information is validated. Going back to Visa owns a system called Plaid. There will be a check of the bank account. We want to check, Lendistry is checking the validity of the bank account, that it's tied to the entity as which is applying. It could be a checking or savings account, business checking or savings. It must be a business account. So Plaid will check all banking activity. It's just checking for, is this valid? Are there any, have there been any violations by other banks? Have banks said, we reject this client, et cetera, et cetera? It's doing that type of verification. And that information is only viewable by the folks at Visa and the folks at Lendistry. No one else can actually see your information. That's in the banking information. No one else will be able to see it. It is kept within the organization. And remember, the state of California has authorized Lendistry to handle this volume of funds. So if they're handling $2 billion, they're certainly going to handle each individual applicant grant awardee's information with care and with security. When you're selected for the grant, this is just a slide to tell you this is what happens. You're going to get a notice saying that you were selected. It's going to say you're not guaranteed the grant. Why are they saying you're not guaranteed the grant? If you've been selected after they've done the validation check, you are who you are certainly eligible, the system said you should get it, is they need to make sure you're going to accept the grant. So when you've been selected, the validation process takes place, then you're validated. I'm sorry, I did that backwards. You've been selected. It's just saying we want to validate you. We're letting you know you're going through the validation process. There's nothing you need to do. It just lets you know you can start the party now because if all the information was true and correct, you're going to get that grant. They just have to validate everything. Once they've done that, you will receive another letter that says that you are awarded the grant, and then within 5 days of receiving that letter, the monies will be deposited in the account. If for some reason something happens during validation, they're asking that if they say this when validation is taking place, it takes 7 days. Since you've been selected, it'll take 7 days. And it may be after they contact you, there may be additional days if information has to be revalidated. And that's why they had to contact you to say we had a validation error. And then following that process, within 5 days, you will actually receive your funds into said account. So this slide is just talking about the different levels that we talked about earlier. If you're waitlisted, you're waiting to possibly opportunity to apply any further. So that actually concludes our presentation on the California Relief Grant. Barbara, I don't see any more questions in the chat. If you have any more, since we've gone through the entire presentation, please feel free, you can ask now, or my information was placed in chat by my colleague, Brian. Thank you so much for doing so. Please take a picture of this slide. We're very proud of our building. We hope that you will take the opportunity to come by and visit our building at some point. We're here to serve the community, the broader community of the Inland Empire. There are 27,000 square miles in San Bernardino, Riverside County, and we are the only CDC, Community Development Corporation, and CDFI, Certified Development Financial Institution, licensed in the area to serve the area. We are your neighbor. We're here to help. And our mission, remember, is to make families better and communities stronger by being champions of job makers, small businesses. Thank you for joining us today, Barbara. I don't see any additional questions. Oops. I see one more comment in the chat. Oh, well, thank you, Barbara. I appreciate you taking the time to say that before you just simply said, I'm going to go now and get on to the rest of my day. We appreciate you. And we are a faith-based organization, so if you don't mind, I'm going to say, God bless you, and thank you again for joining us today. Bye-bye now.